He said, "You've almost got it, but not quite. And I want to tell you the greatest secret." He said we couldn't be overheard. And we sat down, and as we sat down, he reached into a bag and pulled out a board. And he opened this board, and I noticed it was a game. It was Monopoly. So he said, "Do you know, your parents have done you a very big disservice in life." And I said, "Oh, really? What do you mean?" He said, "They informed on you." And I said, "Oh, I don't understand. What do you mean they informed on me?" He said, "When you were born, they informed the government about you. They took you to a building, a government building, and there, some 14 days after you were born, they told a registrar about you, and they gave away your legal title." And I said, "I don't really understand what you mean." They said, "Well, the registrar filled in a certificate, did they not? They filled in your name, and your parents were the informants." I said, "Oh, that sounds rather creepy when you put it like that. You're talking about my birth certificate, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, that's right. And they gave your parents a copy, not the original." And he said, "At that moment, you'd signed away, or effectively they had signed away, their son's legal title. And this was then turned into a bond." And I said, "Oh." He said, "You see, the thing is, at that moment, your legal title on this certificate became a trust fund. The Treasury has now turned this into a trust fund." And at that point, he gave me a certain amount of Monopoly money. He said, "Oh, here's some money for the game." And he said, "Oh, I don't know, the trust fund has probably had £1 million put on it. And because it was bonded, it was floated onto the stock exchange and was earning money. Throughout the rest of your life, this trust fund would earn money. It would earn huge amounts of money." He said, "The government, when you ever get anything official, it'll come with your name in capitalisation, big capitalisation, the same as on your birth certificate, capitalisation. That's how you know that you are a player in the legal game of life. Your top hat isn't you, is it?" He said, "Exactly. It's not actually you. Just as your legal persona, your name in capitalisation, is not you. And yet it's on all the bits of paper from the bank, from the tax office, all those different bits of paper on your car registration, all those different pieces of paper. That is a representation of you, but it's not actually you. Just as the top hat is not actually you." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "So you've got the money from the trust. That is your estate. And we're going to play the game with your estate." He said, "Do you know much about trust funds?" I said, "To be honest with you, I don't know very much at all." He said, "Well, let me explain. You see, when you have a trust, there's a fund, and it's set up by the trustee, in this case by the Treasury, the government, the Treasury. They've put in this money. Now, in order for a trust to work, there must be 2 other people in it. There's 3 maximum, you see. So until you reach the age of majority, which is 18, your parents would be the executor. They would administer the trust for you, set up by the government." He said, "The only thing is, the government, a bit canny like this, they don't actually tell your parents. And so your parents can't tell you that when you're 18, the age of majority, that you could now be the executor. So you go through life feeling that you have no money. You feel that you're a debtor, that you're constantly in debt, that you have to get a job because you need money to pay for the things you need. And yet all the time, there is this trust fund that as you go through life and you get older and the longer it's in there, the more money that it is accruing all the time. There could be, by the time you die, millions upon millions, maybe £50 million are sitting in this trust, unused." He said, "But in the game of Monopoly, as we go around and you get penalties and you earn money," he said, "when you get a penalty, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I just pay it out of this money. He said, yes, that's what you should do in life. But in life, you don't go to your trust fund. You pay it out of the money. You've got a job, and your hard-earned job, you've got this hard-earned cash, real money that you're paying for all the bills and all the taxes. But because they don't tell you that you are the executor of the trust, you don't know. You just think you're in debt all the time. Through life, just as you play on this game of Monopoly, there are hazards. You drive your car and you get into a penalty area and there's an infringement, or you park your car and there's a parking ticket, all these sort of things, and you haven't got the money because you haven't worked hard enough or whatever it is. You could end up with summonses to a court. He said, do you know what a court is? A magistrate's court? And I said, well, yes, I've got an idea. He said, it's just the legal department of the Treasury. They want to make sure that you pay the bills or the infringements or the tickets and all of this. And so they'll administer it. So they'll have a convener, which they call a judge, at the magistrate's court, because all court sessions, all legal things start in a magistrate's court. I said, oh yes. And you'll be summoned there. Now, of course, if you know that you're the executor, you can just tell them to say, well, just pay it out of the trust fund. But you don't know that, so you end up going to court. And the first thing that happens at court is, of course, they will say something like, for the record, state your name. And this is where the trick is played on you. Because you don't know who you are, you will say, my name is Richard Vobes. And at that moment, they've got you. They've got you. Because effectively what's happened is you've said, I'm the top hat, or the dog, or the train, or the iron. You've become the player of the game. You've become the fiction, because their world can only work on the fiction. A real living man cannot enter a real court. They cannot deal with you. So they have to get you to be the legal fiction. And so what happens then is they become the executive, they become the sole beneficiary, and you become a legal representative of the trust, but you end up paying out of your own money. So what you should do, of course, is tell them the truth, because you're not a capitalized version of your name. You're not the top hat. You're not the character that's playing the legal game. Of course you're not. You're a real living man. You're the executor of the estate of the top hat, or the capitalization, the persona of your living man. That's who you are, just as in Monopoly. So you would say, well, I'd like to introduce myself. I am the executor and the sole beneficiary of the estate of Richard Vobes, the legal persona. But I am the executor. And as there is only 3 people that can be in a trust, it means the judge or the prosecutor or the Crown Court, the clerk of the court, is the trustee. The role can switch around depending on who is taken the role, but one of them will have that role. They will in fact have a checkbook ready to pay should you announce who you are. Of course, most people don't, because they don't know, because this is the greatest secret, he said. But once you've announced who you are, and you say, well, I'm the executor of the estate, I'm the executor, I'm the one who controls and administers the top hat. So you're charging this estate the bill of whatever it is, the parking ticket, the inland revenue, the council tax, whatever it is that's not yet been paid. You say, fine, I've no problem paying it. Absolutely. The estate will cough up. Take the money out of the trust. The trust is there. So as the administrator, as the executor, you're the one in charge, because the trustee has to do as you say. And by accepting and admitting and introducing yourself as the executor of the estate and the sole beneficiary, the judge has to be the trustee, and he will have to pay. Well, he won't like that. He'll probably run out of court or say there is no case to answer, because they tend not to like that sort of thing. But that is what it is. You don't need to pay it out of your own money. That's fallacy. You've got this money that's accruing. You can have whatever you like. I said, wow. He said, but they won't like it, and they will do all sorts of things. They will use threats and menaces and potentially try and arrest you and do all sorts of things because they need you to become the legal persona, the legal person, not a real living man, not the executor. They want you to be the top hat, and then they can play the game against you. So you have to resist at all times. Because you are a living man. You are the executor. You didn't ask them to set up the trust. They set up the trust. You're just there to administer it because you are the executor. So administer your trust, he said, with a wry smile. So I went to the bar, thinking about this buzzing in my head. And when I came back with another glass of ale for us both, 2 glasses of ale, I noticed he was nowhere to be seen. He had gone. The board had gone, and all the things, except all that was left, was the little silver top hat. And I could almost hear the words ringing in the air. You are the executor of the legal estate. The trust is in your name. Grab it.